start.
Hello. Sorry. Yes, it's me. Hi, Mike. Thanks for hanging around. So very shortly, we've got a brilliant talk with Stuart Braithwaite, but I just want to do a quick bit of talking about a project we've been involved with for Unconvention for the last few years. It's this red band you'll see here called Jump, which is a European project, and it's kind of a bittersweet story, this, because of various reasons. But for the last 3 years, Unconvention has been part of this project, and what that is a partnership between us and conferences in Paris, Milan, Prague, Greece, and Lisbon in Portugal. So there's 6 conferences working together. It's been a phenomenal experience for us. It's funded by Creative Europe, so it's a European project. And as you may have gathered, because of Brexit, after this year, we're no longer part of that funding, although hopefully we can still be part of what's happening. And what this project is about is finding different ideas and projects, music ideas and projects from across Europe, and we help support them by bringing people from those companies to our conferences. So in 2019, we brought, I think, 25, 30 European businesses, companies, mentors to our conference then. Last year, because we had our 105th Unconvention in March 2020, just before everything shut down, we brought another 30, 35 European projects and people from all across Europe to Manchester. And they were brilliant experiences. It was March in Manchester, it was 4 degrees, and you know the guys from Greece weren't very chuffed about how cold it all was. And ironically, we're doing this one in July, and it would have been beautiful, but the restrictions meant that we couldn't actually bring many people from the project over this time. But we do have UK participants. Mary's here, I saw her before, and some of our mentors, Steve and Terry and Karen. So it's a project that mixes people from different parts of Europe, and we help mentor and develop and look at how things are working in different countries. And as I said, for us personally, it's been a brilliant, positive experience, and yeah, we'll have to work out how we can carry on with it. But what I wanted to do just quickly before we get Stuart on is tell you about some of the projects we're currently working with, because actually, I mean, we tend to cover a lot of ground anyway on Convention, but we talk a lot about the usual stuff, you know, what's the musician's perspective, how we're doing with the trade bodies. But I think what's interesting about a lot of the projects we work with is they're looking at new ideas or different stuff. It tends to be either tech ideas or new networks or social change stuff. So if you would allow me, I'm going to introduce some of them, but you can find out more about these projects at, I forget the website, jumpmusic.eu. And the reason I want to tell you about them, because if they are interesting and they are resonating with stuff that you're doing, then I'm quite happy to facilitate putting you in touch with either the mentors or the fellows of those projects. So to give you an idea, we're working with 18, 20 projects at the moment from across Europe, and I'm just going to highlight some of them as ideas that might be interesting. The first one is called Accord AR, and it's based in Portugal, and they're working on using not AI, augmented reality, AR. Here we go, quiz for me. And I mean, maybe the simplest way I can give it is almost as an archive of how music fits in a city. So they're working in Lisbon, and they're looking at hip-hop in Lisbon, and the idea that you would use augmented reality to be able to look at places of interest in the city and learn a bit about them. It's kind of like an archive. And I'm always thinking of Jez, who presented our Regional Music Scenes Network panel yesterday, does a lot of work in Birmingham. So that kind of idea of using technology in a physical way in a city to tell the story of the music of that city is, to me, quite an exciting idea. So I wanted to highlight that one in particular. We've also got Daniel in the Netherlands. He's got his automated music observatory that Steve's helping support. And they're looking at using big data and data that's available publicly and working that data into stuff that makes sense really for more independent companies. And Steve will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the starting point of that is big companies have a lot of useful data that they can use to their advantage or disadvantage, and they can use for lobbying, and they can use to influence stuff. But the observatory is using more publicly accessible data to find interesting trends, and they've been publishing some really interesting stuff around what that might mean in terms of what artists are getting paid from streaming companies and so on. So again, a very interesting project if that's anyone on the street. We've got Fairphonic, which is a copyright recognition tool. That is AI, These acronyms are killing me, I tell you. So that's, if you know a little bit about how Spotify, YouTube and Shazam works, which is how you recognize music when it's played in, on the internet, what have you. And they're working on technologies that's more accurate for that, with really a goal to transparency and how to better pay artists and things along those lines. We've got From Play to Rec, which is Jeremy, and their ideas around open source recording, going to interesting places and making records with a public audience, and how that affects that interaction. Because I guess traditionally you've got the sterile, here's the recording we made in the studio, and then here's us doing the gig, and there's a little bit of merging of that and how that's interesting for both the performers and the audience. So if those kind of things are of interest. Law D, which is Alexandra, is really, I think, I'm sort of careful not to sort of paraphrase their projects and get them wrong, but I see them as going up a little bit against Spotify in the sense of the algorithm. So if you follow kind of the way Spotify's job is to make you listen to Spotify, in a nutshell. And the algorithm's job is to work out what you like and keep giving you what you like. And there's a real danger of homogeny in that. You're just going to get what you get. And they're looking much more at interesting ways for music discovery. So they're trying to move away from that sort of feeding the machine algorithm, and where you can look at your interests, whether it's around particular artists, particular session musicians, particular instruments, and it'll allow you to discover music based on those ideas, rather than necessarily just what a computer program in Sweden has decided that you might like next, without having too much to go at them. We've got Release Day, which is about podcasting and electronic music, particularly for underrepresented parts of the music community. I love this. It's a London double-decker bus, and it's decked out to make podcasts and travel around and try and highlight the work of, unrepresented communities, whether that be, females or different minorities in wherever they're going. So, and predominantly around electronic music. We've got Flavia's project, which is Restart, a safe space, which is one close to our hearts. We've had a couple of these over the years, and it's looking at mental health and how mental health is discussed in the music industry. And I mean, their ambition is really to normalize that discussion, and I think we're getting there. We had some pretty good talks yesterday with Frank Turner and Ed O'Brien, and about the stresses and strains of this industry, not just for performers, but for promoters and venue owners and anyone who's sort of trying to, I guess, make things happen. So they're working on that project and helping to, again, get over some of the barriers. We've got Studio Mars, which is working across a few art forms, music, theatre, technology, and they're building installations, and using technology to make immersive sort of walk-through theatre stuff. And I can think of, there's a few projects I'm aware of that are interested in that. And as I say, it's just getting beyond that idea of music being making a record or standing on a stage. There's more to it. And then we've got Mary's project, the record shop. So Mary's here with us there. Go and say hello to Mary if you see it. So if I'm doing you a disservice here, Mary, but Mary's is so the record shop, I've got it down, it's a space, it's an educational space. It predominantly works with, I think, 16 to 25-year-olds. Yep, young people. It's a recording studio, it's mentoring, it's helping young people who probably, again, this has come up quite a lot. The music industry isn't always that accessible, I think, depending on, your background and where you're from and if you've got the resources to do it. So Mary's project's based in London and is helping young people to get their start in music or to get their creativity. So please go and speak to Mary if that's an area you're working in. And the last one I got on my list, there is more projects than this, I just condensed it down because I didn't want to just rant at you for too long, is Gina's down in London. It's called You Know Who. And Gina's idea, very much I think born out of lockdown, was looking at different ways and different platforms for artists and musicians to connect, particularly remotely. So whether that be writing sessions with your favorite artist or some kind of career advice or mentorship and those kind of things. So she's facilitating artists doing things with their audience beyond just, again, listening to music and playing. So there's a sort of sample of some of the projects that we're working on, or working with, I apologize. There is another 10. Do go and look on the Jump website. And as I say, if any of those kind of things resonate, or any of the other projects, we've also got projects, I should have written these down, this is bad. We've got a Credible project that's looking at female urinals. So the idea that actually it's not very fair that when you go to festivals and big events, it's dead easy for blokes to go and relieve themselves, but more difficult. So that's been brought in. We've got some other AR and AI projects and VR projects. One of the projects based in London is looking at how an audience can sit with VR and experience a show, as you might imagine. And I think we are on, you know, in this streaming world, on the precipice of some new stuff where how we engage with music is going to be more than just either sitting in a room like this or listening to on a pair of headphones. So there's the project. On a personal note, yeah, sadly, with Creative Europe, because we're in the UK and we've Brexited, we are no longer eligible. I guess it's our fight. We've got to find out ways how we can still work with companies in Europe and projects like that. I would say from Unconvention's point of view, we do events all around the world anyway. We may have left the EU, but we're as European as we ever had been. So we'll certainly want to continue working with our partners in Paris, Prague, Athens, and so on. And I'm sure as artists or music professionals, you would share that ambition to carry on working with other European companies, possibly with a few more challenges. Lovely, that's all I've got to say on it. I probably finished a little early, but...